you ever wondered if the voice you choose for your family history could change how your story is received?
Welcome to the Write Your Family Histories channel's Writer's Corners, where you ask questions that don't quite fit various topics, and I answer them. But who am I? I'm Devin Noel Lee, the author of A Recipe for Writing Family History, a quick guide to help you rapidly write your family stories and turn them into books for your shelves.
A viewer asked, which voice should I use when I write my family history? I want to share my family history, but I also want to write a commentary on the family stories that I write. Should I write solidly in the third person or switch between first person and third person? What a great question for a family history writer. It's especially compelling because it's tied to a specific task. Without that focus, the answer might be, it depends. Instead, we can dig deeper. Let's break this question down and explore the best advice for the situation. Before diving into which voice to use, let's clarify what voice means. Active versus passive voice. This focuses on the sentence structure. Narrator's perspective. This relates to who tells the story and how they're involved. How much do they know? We'll touch briefly on active versus passive voice and then move on to the heart of the matter, choosing the right narrator's perspective for your family history. A quick refresher on active versus passive voice. As a general rule, aim to use active voice as much as possible. An active voice keeps your writing clear and engaging, non-boring, which is especially important when you're storytelling about your ancestors. Here's an example of passive voice. Rich genealogical details are found in graveyards by genealogists. Let's make it active. Genealogists uncover rich genealogical details in graveyards. See the difference? In the second sentence, the action is front and center. The researcher is actively making the discovery. Active voice gives your writing energy, which can make your ancestor's story come alive. Translation, it makes it not so boring. If you struggle to spot passive voice, check out my video about the passive voice checkers, which I will link in the description box below. When we talk about the narrator's voice, we're really asking whose perspective is telling the story and how much they know. Here are the three most common narrative voice options. First person. The narrator uses I and tells the story from their own perspective. Memoir writers often use this voice. Here's an example of how a narrator in this voice would tell their story. I remember the stories my grandmother told me about the old country. Third person limited. The narrator tells the story from one person's perspective, but does not know their thoughts. Here's an example. Emma worked long hours in the fields, saving every penny for her children's education. Third person omniscient, all-knowing. The narrator knows everything. All characters' thoughts, actions, and motivations. For example, Victor felt a surge of pride as he watched his children, though he worried about the future. In the case of the viewer's question, they wanted to tell their family story while adding personal reflections. This approach aligns beautifully with the lesser-known option, observer, narrator. This perspective uses third-person pronouns to tell the story and first-person pronouns for the commentary. The narrator is not only a witness, though not privy to anyone's inner thoughts, but a commentator about the choices and events in the person's life, the person they're writing about. Use the following to achieve this narrative voice. Start with third-person pronouns, he, she, they, when describing and detailing your ancestors' actions. Use first-person pronouns, I, when adding your own thoughts or commentary. Here's an example of the combination. Fritz Ott boarded the ship in Hamburg, saying goodbye to all he'd known. I can only imagine the courage that must have taken, especially for a man who was just 18. The first sentence leverages the third-person narration, while the second adds your commentary. Following this structure, you tell your ancestor's story while incorporating your insights. If you decide to use first-person commentary, be cautious with the pronoun we. Depending on the context, we can muddle your meaning. Does we mean you and your ancestor? Does it mean you and your present-day relatives, or does it refer to your readers? Whenever you feel tempted to use we, consider rephrasing your sentences to clarify your meaning. Before we continue, if I have given you value during this video, please click the like button and subscribe. Then I would really love it if you would leave a comment or a question or other thoughts. My favorite part of doing the Write Your Family History channel is reading your comments and getting to know your challenges and hopefully motivating you to write those stories. One potential pitfall of blending storytelling with commentary is the risk of blurring the line between fact and opinion, which experienced genealogists strive to avoid. Remember that using reliable evidence and supporting conclusions from sources is part of the genealogical proof standard. When we add commentary to a narrative, we likely use reliable evidence, but our language can cause confusion. A reader may be unable to distinguish between a fact derived from sources or making a supposition influenced by your interpretation. Let me offer a general example before sharing a specific one. Please avoid writing dialogue unless you have a reliable source, like a letter or an audio recording. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Inventing conversation risks mischaracterizing your ancestors' personalities or beliefs, no matter how plausible. Avoid the possibility of an ancestor saying in the next life, "That's not how I speak or what I think." However, inserting opinions can be more subtle than an entire conversation. Can you spot the opinion statement in the following sentence? Patrick fled Ireland because the potato famine left his family starving. This sentence asserts Patrick's motivation to leave Ireland with the words like fled and left his family starving. A writer might choose this language based on historical records that suggest that over 1 million people emigrated from Ireland because of economic hardship and starvation. However, without direct evidence linking Patrick's reason for leaving Ireland during the potato famine, we can only suggest that as a reason. Look at the two following sentences and see if they are an improvement over the first one. Patrick may have left Ireland as a result of the potato famine, which indicated a struggling local economy and caused mass starvation amongst his countrymen. Patrick may have left Ireland during the potato famine, a time marked by a struggling local economy and widespread starvation among his countrymen. The strengths of these sentences are these. The phrase may have left is a non-definitive language, which leaves room for the possibility that something else might have been the reason Patrick left. For instance, a family feud, running from responsibility, or the law, to name a few. Incorporating the potato famine into the statement anchors Patrick to a time in history. This historical context helps readers understand the setting in which Patrick's journey happened in as few words as possible. You'll need to add a footnote to share the date of Patrick's journey along with resources discussing the potato famine. This action can help curious readers know that we have evidence that Patrick left Ireland during the height of the potato famine. Still, we don't have proof that this was why he emigrated. However, we're still being speculative with these sentences. If we've transformed our language from definitive to speculative, I consider my interview with Carol Baxter, who says we can use judgment in our writing. To ensure our readers have clarity, we must include proper citations. Otherwise, we might be relegated to sentences with less historical context like the following. Patrick left Ireland during the 1840s. Footnote. Historical records indicate that over 1 million people emigrated from Ireland during this time, driven by economic hardship and starvation. Boring. What voice do I recommend family historians use to write non-boring family histories? I prefer writing in the third person, limited to footnotes for clarification, endnotes for source citations, and box text for commentary if you need it. Or use the appendix for commentary. I imagine myself on the shoulder of my ancestor and following them around their life. I can make judgments based on evidence and social history, but I use non-definitive language when making these judgments. Such an approach maintains a clear boundary between fact and interpretation. If I want to ensure additional clarity while adding commentary, that's when I use the footnotes or the box text, where I can break the fourth wall and talk to my audience. Which voice do you use when writing your family histories? Do you prefer sticking strictly to third person, or do you enjoy adding personal reflections? What challenges have you faced along the way? I'd love to hear where you're at in your writing processes, what you've learned, or any other comments you would like to share, so start typing. Remember to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe on your way out. Then go write your family history.